Spiderman, X-Men. Whole lot of X's in this bit. What it is, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy JJ, and I'm back with another film theory banger. Alright? Now listen. I'm not gonna lie, their titles just like, it's like, they just be catching me. I don't know what it is. Like, I try to stay away from it. Like, listen, Spider-Man's coming out next week. So I'm like, yo, don't go on Twitter. Don't go near film theory. But what did I do? I went near film theory. And guess what? You guys are going there with me. I don't care. Alright? Spoilers. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. But just know, when the movie comes out on Friday, I'm gonna be the first one to watch it, and I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what happens 2 hours later after the movie's over. I don't care. So without further ado, film theory, Spider-Man's big reveal. The X-Men are coming.
And so you see, logically, Pizza Planet is the only franchise that could have been using the legacy recipe from Freddy Fazbear's, which is how you get—
Matpat? Mr. Matpat?
Yes?
Do you have a theory?
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's totally happening! They're finally acknowledging my existence! Do I have a theory? Yes, sir, I do.
About the future of the MCU?
Oh yeah, and not just about the future, but also the old—
Great. I've got Kevin Feige.
And I've got a cease and desist.
Oh.
He haven't said anything about that. His channel's getting clipped.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that can predict the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 90% of the time.
Oh, 19%.
Hey, no need to show me up like that, Morris. Then again, how can I stay mad at something with such a cute, fuzzy legs? So, Shang-Chi is finally out on Disney Plus, meaning that those who weren't comfortable going to see it in the theaters are finally getting to experience—
Wasn't it on HBO Max first, though?
The best Marvel Phase 4 movie yet. To be fair, the competition so far hasn't been particularly hard. Between the incredible choreography, the brilliant character performances, the decided lack of a skybeam, yeah, this one felt really refreshing. Especially—
Stop dissing Eternals. That shit was hard as fuck.
when the whole climax just amounts to one big kaiju battle. Speaking of those giant monsters at the end, though, that one felt weird for you too, right? Like, you have this incredible movie featuring top-tier martial arts and then giant CGI tentacle monster. All right, sure. The Dweller in Darkness as this big third-act villain just felt weird to me, both when I first saw it in theaters and again when I watched it at home. Like, why him? It felt so random, so disconnected from everything the movie had set up tonally up to that point. But then Disney Plus Day happened, and with it, all these announcements about upcoming projects, and suddenly, something clicked into place for me. You see, I believe Shang-Chi's inclusion of the Dweller in Darkness has set the dominoes up for the biggest reveal that the MCU has left. One that they've been keeping in their back pocket since 2019. Shang-Chi and the giant kaiju battle, it just opened the door, both figuratively and literally, for the X-Men. Strap in, friends.
Stupid ass nigga, it made sense. Like, I knew he was leading up to that shit.
Wild ride. To give the briefest of recaps so you can follow the important details for today's—
In the comments, tell me who was your favorite X-Men. Keep it 1,000.
Theory, Shang-Chi follows a character named Shang-Chi, if that wasn't obvious. But the story is really all about his father, Wenwu, the Mandarin.
You'll never see me coming.
No.
Would you ever want to be Wenwu though, low-key? Just like live forever type shit?
Not that one, the real Mandarin. You see, Wenwu, for being a cold, heartless international crime lord, is really broken up about his dead wife. So when he hears her suddenly calling out to him from behind a mysterious door, he becomes obsessed with opening that door back up. After decades of searching, he finds the door in the realm—
Ain't no other bitch love that nigga. Sorry. Bro said, I don't love nobody. Nobody. Nobody but you, baby.
Hello. And the people there are totally like, no, you idiot, that's not your wife. That's a big bad dark thing that we sealed behind the door years ago. Which, can I just say, why? Like, why do people seal entities behind doors and not, you know, a wall? You're not meant to open a wall. Walls do not come with hinges that allow them to open back up. Just saying, you had one job, Talo, one job, and you blew it. Anyway, Shang-Chi, the movie, decides to be very efficient in its third act by combining all of its tropes into one major battle. Not only do Shang-Chi and Wenwu have a good old-fashioned MCU fight your opposite color scheme nemesis battle, but it's also a punch through your daddy issues battle. Two for the price of one. Really appreciate how they've streamlined the process. Anyway, the battle is promptly interrupted by something bursting through the door, and funnily enough, it's not Wenwu's wife. This giant monster is called the Dweller in Darkness. Wenwu sacrifices himself for his son, and Shang-Chi manages to use the rings to destroy the Dweller despite it being the first time that he's ever tried him on, and the fact that Talo's best warriors were unable to do the same task millennia ago.
But remember, that's his dad. Alright? So he knows, nigga. He knows how to fucking use the rings. He just probably never used them. Or he probably read about it, nigga. The guy is smart.
Just saying, watch out, Captain Marvel. Looks like we got a totally new overpowered hero auditioning for the Avengers. And that's basically the movie. This is obviously a massive oversimplification of what actually goes down, but it's basically what we need to know to contextualize the Dweller in Darkness. This giant Cthulhu-like tentacle monster thing that eats souls in order to become more powerful. As I mentioned before, it felt like a weird inclusion to me for a movie all about hand-to-hand combat. The Dweller feels like a bad fit for a kung fu movie. It feels like something more...
All I gotta say is, bro, that was a whole lot of, you know what I'm saying, fighting. That shit was hard.
In line with like a cosmic mystic arts movie. And if you thought the same thing, then congratulations, you're right. Because the Dweller in Darkness is in the comics, but not as a Shang-Chi character. Instead, he's one of the oldest and most fearsome foes to none other than Doctor Strange. That guy keeps showing up in weird places these days, doesn't he? It also explains why they shoehorned Wong in there.
Exactly.
See, in the comics, the Dweller in Darkness is a demonic being who claims to have been born of the essence of all fears. He tends to lead a sewing circle of other scary monsters called the Fear Lords.
Time out. Before I keep going, did y'all ever watch Green Lantern? That has nothing to do with what I'm about to say.
They're kind of like edgelords.
It had nothing to do with what I was saying.
Normally, he looks like this. Literally an octopus on a body. Clearly, his appearance in Legend of the Ten Rings has changed a lot. Now looking a lot more like a dragon, bat, dinosaur thing. But he and his minions do still have those telltale Lovecraftian Old One tentacles. Something that we've also been seeing a lot in these Marvel Phase 4 projects. What If, for instance, has not just one random appearance of tentacles, but two. In both Episode 1 with Captain Carter and Episode 4 with Doctor Strange. So we have Doctor Strange himself, his enemies, and lots of tentacles coming out of portals all over the MCU right now. In Shang-Chi, in What If, in the upcoming Spider-Man movie, in his own multiverse movie down the line. But what does it all mean? And why do I think it all connects back to the X-Men? Well, that's where this scene and Disney Plus Day come in. If you don't know what Disney Plus Day was, it was basically a day where Disney released a bunch of stuff onto their streaming service and then made announcements about upcoming projects. And of the announcements, there was a lot of what you'd expect. More MCU, more...
Bro, am I the only nigga who's just shocked right now? I'm just waiting for the fucking climax. Like, fucking hey, bro.
Star Wars, more Pixar, even some surprises like Hocus Pocus 2, which, gotta say, personal favorite of mine. Just lots and lots of stuff coming down the pipeline for Disney. But you know what was oddly quiet? Fox properties, specifically the X-Men. For those of you who don't remember or weren't aware of it, Disney bought Fox 2.5 years ago, and with it came the rights to another Marvel property, the X-Men. But nothing has come.
Oh, Disney, nigga, you got money, nigga.
No announcements, no hints about upcoming projects. And sure, it takes time to make stuff, but you know, these things run on hype. Stuff gets announced years before it ever becomes a reality. The MCU has a timeline that's like 5 years out at this point. Or in the world of video games, you got Elder Scrolls 6, which was announced 3 years ago, with nothing to show for it but a stock fantasy image pulled the night before by an intern. You'd think that Disney would mention something that they're planning to do with this massive IP that they paid $71 billion for. Oh, wait.
You know what I would do with $71 billion?
Hey, hold on. At Disney Plus Day, they did announce one thing, and it's kind of random. A reboot of the 1990s Fox animated classic, The X-Men, now dubbed X-Men 97, which, hey, if nothing else, gives me an excuse to fire up this old intro from 5 years ago that we spent way too long on and only used once. Oh, that theme song! It's so good! Anyway, people went nuts over this thing, and I gotta admit, I was excited too. I loved watching this show growing up, but something felt suspicious to me about this announcement, like...
I wasn't born.
This is the one and only thing that's first out of the gate for X-Men under Disney control? I mean, sure, it's the classic, but is it really big enough to be given this sort of treatment? Why not just reboot the live-action X-Men and get them into the MCU? I mean, that's what everybody really wants. That's where the big money is, not on streaming. We all know it, and I guarantee you, Disney knows it too. That's why I suspect X-Men 97 is gonna be the X-Men's introduction into the MCU. Just not the way that people might expect. See, in the 90s, the X-Men animated series was hugely popular, and it introduced a whole new audience to these characters. The issue was the comics available at the time didn't look anything like the cartoon, and a lot of the characters that seemed important in the animated series, like Jubilee and Gambit, just weren't, like, at all. So Marvel wanted there to be something in the X-Men section of comic book stores that actually resembled the version of the X-Men that these TV show fans were more familiar with. As such, they published a separate series disconnected from the rest of the Marvel Universe continuity that adapted the storylines from the show under the title X-Men Adventures. When the cartoon was due to end, they then rebranded this comic as Adventures of the X-Men, which told new stories still set in the original continuity.
That's how you know these niggas lazy, and we all fall for it. X-Men and the X-Men and the Adventures. The Adventures of X-Men. X-Men Adventures. Wait. X-Adventures Men.
Of the cartoon, tying off most of its ongoing plot threads. The key for us today, though, is how the series ended. They didn't settle for the world was saved and they all lived happily ever after in this one. Oh no, friends. They went insane and actually ended the entire universe. You heard that right. Not sure how to end a series, just end the universe. No more characters means no more stories to tell.
Yo,
this story arc was driven
crazy.
largely by a character named Despair,
Senosama,
who turns out was working on behalf of another character, the one that started this whole theory, the Dweller in Darkness. The Dweller wanted to end the universe because doing so would cause everyone to feel immense fear. Fear that he could then absorb and basically become a god. The crazy twist with this story, though, is that the X-Men don't really manage to stop
Super Saiyan God.
It's kind of like a tie.
Crazy.
They can't stop the destruction of the universe, but they did learn enough about understanding brotherhood and friendship over the course of the series that Jean Grey's Phoenix powers are able to send those positive vibes to every mind in existence, so no one is afraid of their inevitable death. They're all connected, so even though they're on the brink of Armageddon, they die nobly, without fear, meaning that the Dweller doesn't get the opportunity to level up. And then the known universe collapses in on itself and everyone dies, the end. But what on earth does this have to do with the MCU?
Well, not that
on the end of their universe
nigga.
comes a big bang which creates a whole new universe, the real comic universe, Universe 616. On the last panel, we see the classic 1960s versions of the X-Men, essentially rebooting the animated X-Men, but in a way that then connected them back into the main continuity of the franchise. This is actually what I predict is gonna happen at the end of X-Men 97. Remember, this part of the story was never put to screen. It was a totally new story just for the comics.
How did this nigga got all this time?
Which makes it a pretty darn great choice for all of those who wanted the TV show to get its true finale. But it also means that Marvel can have their cake and eat it too. They can revive these classic characters, keeping them as cartoons, but also throw them into the MCU by having them be a prequel to the Marvel universe that we know today. In Shang-Chi, we hear that before the Dweller was locked away by Ta Lo, he had destroyed many universes. Maybe one such universe was the X-Men 97 one. That may seem like a stretch, but if you cast your mind back to the Spider-Man No Way Home teaser, you'll notice that Doctor Strange is holding a conspicuous mug emblazoned with a cartoon fox. It could just be a random mug that they had on set, or it's another Easter egg. Fox formerly owned the rights to properties like the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Deadpool, hence why they've never appeared in the MCU. But now that Disney owns Fox, people have been hoping that any multiversal storyline would allow characters like the X-Men to suddenly—
Wait, if Disney owns Fox, do they own like Fox 5 News and shit? Like that's my
Great question.
Like that's like that's my news channel. You know what I'm saying? You telling me SpongeBob and shit can pull up on my fucking TV? Why they telling me, yo, there's an earthquake
enter into the continuity. It's why everyone got so excited when X-Men's Quicksilver turned up in WandaVision, and then did a collective eye roll when it turned out to be a fake. I think this mug is a nod to the connection between Doctor Strange and Fox's X-Men 97, which so far is the only—
So why you, bro, okay, I have a question. Alright, so if y'all gonna talk about Spider-Man, y'all mind fucking me, alright? Y'all motherfuckers mind fucking me. Spider-Man, X-Men, but this shit all has to do with Doctor Strange. See, this motherfucker causing problems in multiple universes. Like, what type of shit is that? You know what I'm saying?
Fox Marvel property to be announced. Plus, we know that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has a big co-starring part for Scarlet Witch, a character with a major quasi-canonical connection to the X-Men universe. And this is the part where I remind you that in Shang-Chi, the MCU's Dweller in Darkness tricked Wenwu into releasing it by calling out to him using the voice of his dead wife, all while Wenwu was in an emotionally vulnerable state, researching dark magic and using the 10 rings. Remind me again what Scarlet Witch was doing the last time that we saw her?
Yeah, this bitch was reading a book. Crazy ass.
She too was in an emotionally vulnerable state researching dark magic when she's startled by the voices of none other than her dead children. So X-Men 97 may just be a canonical prequel to the MCU, but if the
Is Scarlet Witch an X-Men?
Dweller in Darkness has been defeated in the MCU timeline, then surely our connection is gone then, right? Well, not quite, because there is another massive villain that comes out of that X-Men storyline. You see, there's one other person racing to survive the death of the universe, a scientist astronaut named Galen from an advanced planet called Ta. Like the X-Men, he too was undertaking a desperate mission to try and prevent the universe's collapse. Instead, he becomes the sole survivor for his entire galaxy, and he merges with the sentience of the universe in order to transform into a godlike being that's always hungry for planets. In short, this one story gives us the birth of Galactus, one of the most important and powerful comic book forces of all time. A giant space dude with a cool hat who eats planets not because he's evil, but because he's just really hungry. He is an embodiment of a literal force of nature, basically the final boss of Marvel properties. Now, a few years ago, this guy showing up wouldn't have fit into the more realistic sensibilities of the MCU, but now that the MCU has introduced giant cosmic entities like the Celestials, a big boy like Galactus could possibly fit right in.
These niggas is fucking... Alright, Film Theory, you fucking got it. These niggas is fucking smart. These niggas is fucking smart, bro. They didn't do this just to do it. They did it. It's all about... It's all about the entity. It's all about the rise to the climax. Not the resolution. Nigga. The revolution, nigga. Come on, bro.
Scratch that, it's more than a possibility. I believe it actually is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I believe it too now. I believe it too now.
Comes back to Shang-Chi. The most important part of this movie actually comes down to the mid-credit scene because, of course it does, it's a Marvel movie. Wong explains that when Shang-Chi used the 10 rings himself for the very first time, he and the other mystics felt it in Kamar-Taj, where previously they had had no record of anything like them ever existing, despite the fact that Wenwu had been using these things for 1,000 years, apparently extending his life, conquering kingdoms, and killing tons of people with his magic floaty blue rings wasn't enough magic stuff for the Society of Wizards tasked with noticing magic usage to...
But think about it. Nah, before you say what you about to say, think about it. When Shang-Chi, when he used it, it was when that big ass motherfucking, nigga vacuum came, nigga, that big ass dragon, nigga, came out the motherfucking wall, nigga. Out of a father, bro, he was in a wall in another dimension. And the rings, that shit's like a battery, nigga.
You know, notice the magic. You had one job, Wong. You sit over there with Ta Lo twice in the same episode. Not mad, just disappointed. Wong goes on to explain that using the rings was like setting off a beacon, calling out to something or someone out in the cosmos.
What is it? A beacon.
We're sending a message.
Now, in a previous theory, I proposed that the 10 rings could match up with the 10 Eternals that we were aware of before the movie's release. And sure enough, Eternals does feature a climactic battle scene where the Eternal engineer Phastos invents a way for the team to captain and planet their energies together into a singular force called the Unimind, using flashing important stuff arrow here, special bracelets that each individual Eternal wears. So these then are the 10 rings that Wenwu found, right? No, because by that point in the movie, 2 of the 10 Eternals had been killed off. That would leave, and -2 is, less than 10. Also, that scene happens in the present time, so, you know, those 10 rings, that ain't it, Chief. So it's not the Eternals, it's not the Dweller in Darkness. Who is it? You've probably figured out where I'm going with this one. It's Galactus.
Yeah.
Think about it. We know that Marvel likes to combine or mix up their stories a little bit. So where the Dweller in Darkness is more traditionally a Doctor Strange villain, he's now been defeated to be replaced by the other big bad from his X-Men continuity. It's also worth mentioning that Galactus has been seen clashing with another set of characters from the Fox Marvel pantheon, the Fantastic Four. What better way to reboot all of them and bring them into the MCU than with one of
Silver Surfer,
their biggest villains. And don't forget, we've already met one of our new Phase 4 villains, Kang the Conqueror, over in Loki. And his main bad guy thing is getting yourself a space monster that's always hungry and feeding it.
I weaponized Alliance.
Sounds familiar, kind of like a certain universe-sized villain with a cool hat and an appetite for planets. So there you have it, friends. I'm suggesting that—
what would the moon taste like? I know Earth tastes like some gas. But what would the moon? What would Saturn taste like? That shit like air. Like it's. I better be like a like fart, nigga. Cause Saturn, no, that's Jupiter. Y'all know what I'm
the
talking
Fox
about.
universe has to die so the MCU can be born, both canonically, but I suppose also from a meta standpoint. So you can have our cartoon X-Men, and it still actually means something to the MCU. The universe collapses, bookending the Fox era of Marvel history while still having it fit in nice and neat with their MCU, but in doing so, they're able to create a monster worse than the Dweller in Darkness. One that the 10 rings are calling out to like a lunch bell, drawing Galactus to Earth for our heroes to fight against at the end of Phase 4, or probably actually later in Phase 5. Alongside some new heroes like the rebooted X-Men that we'll see at the end of the Adventures comics. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory.
No, it's not just a theory. Alright? That shit is real, nigga. You know that shit is real. Hey man, that's it for the video. This nigga just mind fucked the shit out of me, bro. And I fell for it. I thought he was talking about Spider-Man, but that shit was a lie. I thought he was talking about Spider-Man, but that shit was... you know what I'm saying? Hey, man. That's it for the video. Galactus. He's coming. But before he comes, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I love y'all. And I will catch you on the next one. Hey, hey. Oh,